you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Excellent.
So you said Jesus is God. May I ask you?
I didn't say that. Coley said it.
I said it. What's up?
Okay, Cody,
What's your question?
You said Jesus is God. May I ask you why you say that?
There's a multitude of reasons. I really like to think about it like this. There's a scholar named Richard Bowman, and he does a great job of breaking this down. He uses a little acronym. And so Jesus actually, he has the honor due to God's name. Okay. He has the attributes of God. He bears the name of God. He does the deeds of God, and he sits on the throne of God. So if it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, we should probably assume it's a duck, right? So everything we see who God is, Jesus demonstrates.
Yeah, that's good. Those categories are interesting. I agree with you, but they do not prove identity because in the Bible, prophets and angels can bear God's name, and they can represent God's authority and do God-given deeds without literally being God, right? So
can you show me anyone in Scripture other than Jesus that does all five of those things? He gets the honor received to God. I'd like to see one other person that does that. He has the name of God. He does the deeds of God. He sits on the throne of God, and he has the attributes of God, like all five of them.
I don't think I need to, because a unique combination of delegated roles still does not equal identity with God, because Scripture gives those categories to others in different ways. Like
so if Jesus just told us that he was God, then what?
Then I would ask what he actually said, because saying things that are later interpreted as divine is not the same as plainly saying, right, I'm God.
You know, Jesus just in a multitude of ways literally tells us that he's God. So I think a really significant one. Can you pull up John 8?
Nope. John 8.
Now, go to 24. See, a lot of people like to think about John 8:58, which we can look at that as well. But I actually think there's something really significant happening here in John 8:24, because if you know your Old Testament, Jesus is actually quoting Isaiah. He's actually quoting Yahweh. So in John 8:24, and this is in the midst of a conversation where, are you familiar with this passage at all?
Yeah, I'm familiar, actually.
Yeah.
I was smiling a little bit because John 8 actually distinguishes Jesus from God, but yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, then at the end of this conversation, they're going to try to stone him for blasphemy, right? And so in 8:24, it says, "Therefore I said to you that you will die in your sins, for unless you believe that I am he, you will die in your sins." And so in this text where Jesus says, "I am he," he's directly quoting Isaiah and calling himself the I am. He's calling himself Yahweh here.
Good. So, by the way, ego eimi by itself is not a unique divine title. I disagree with that totally. The same phrase.
That's great.
Used in, I think John 4:26.
Right. And so that's why I'm explicitly using this verse, because he's quoting Yahweh and applying it to himself.
Only if you assume that the Isaiah echo proves identity in Isaiah.
Say that again.
Only if you assume the Isaiah echo proves identity.
Only if I assume that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that? 43:10? I think is it 43:10? I think I'm thinking of. I think it's 10.
By the way, it's Isaiah 43:7.
Yeah. So it says, "You are my witnesses, declares Yahweh, and my servant whom I've chosen, so that you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me, there was no God formed, and there will be none after me. This is Jesus directly quoting this about himself. So not only do we see that Jesus is calling himself God, but in particular, he's calling himself Yahweh, the God of Israel, that there are no other gods but him.
Good, but I'm saying the Isaiah allusion only helps your case if an allusion necessarily means Jesus is identical to Yahweh, but that does not follow, right? Because agents can speak and act in God's name without being God himself. So I agree.
Let me ask you something. So if I came up to you on the street or whatever, and you knew Isaiah 43:10, and I quoted it in reference to myself, what do you think I would be saying about me?
I would think you were invoking God's language about yourself.
Thus declaring what?
Not necessarily that you are God, only that you are appropriating divine language for some claim about authority or identity.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So the question is, what the surrounding context demands, and in John 8, Jesus still presents himself as distinct from the Father. So you have to give me a surrounding context that proves your claim.
Jesus is distinct from the Father. So there's no, we don't disagree with that.
Right, and that is exactly the point, because if Jesus is distinct from the Father, then John 8 cannot be a simple claim that Jesus just is the same person as Yahweh, right?
We don't believe that Jesus is the same person as the Father, but we do believe that Jesus is Yahweh and that he bears the divine name Yahweh, right? And you talk about the surrounding context. If you go back to it, Logic, and that's why a lot of people go to John 8:58. Could you just go to John 8? That's why by the time we get to John 8:58, there's ultra clarity about what Jesus is saying about himself. Scroll down to 58. Because if you're just talking about the surrounding context, like the context over and over, it's actually a theme in the book of John that Jesus is the I am. He says it all of the time. And so even in John chapter 8, you get it in two different references. In John 8:24, he says that I am he, quoting Isaiah 43:10. And then John 8:58, he says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am, in reference to Exodus 3. And that's why within the context, if he was only just appropriating some type of divine agency, just a messenger on Yahweh's behalf, then why are the Jews picking up stones to then, take him out for blasphemy?
Because their reaction shows how they took it, not what he metaphysically proved. Because people can accuse someone of blasphemy for like exalted claims short of literally being Yahweh, but in context, Jesus is claiming pre-existence and superiority to Abraham. I think you'll agree with that, which is provocative enough. I say right. Jesus is claiming pre-existing and superiority to Abraham, right?
So he's claiming pre-existence by referencing what verse to them?
By saying before Abraham was, I am.
Right. So what is he trying to draw to their mind about his pre-existence? What verse in the Old Testament would they have then thought of?
Possibly Exodus 3:14. I don't know.
Correct. Which is when who reveals himself to Moses?
Yahweh, sure, but Jesus did not quote Exodus 3:14, like exactly. Also, the Greek there is like it's eko eimi hoon. It's not just eko eimi. So.
That's fine. That's fine. What we do, like you agree with this, is we read the verse within context, right? And so that's how we gather from the context what Jesus is saying. We gather it by this connection because we know the Old Testament, so we have a little Old Testament backdrop, and then we gather it by the context of the conversation with the people that he's having and how they're responding. right? I don't know. I've landed the plane, man. I don't know how you're gonna, like, you get it. You're just rejecting it. Like, you see the connection to Yahweh revealing himself to Moses. That's where we see the divine name. Jesus clearly connects it to himself.
No, I'm going to show you why your conclusion is not followed, because John 8 may echo the Old Testament, but the explicit statements in the chapter are the Father sent Jesus. He taught Jesus, and he glorifies Jesus. So Jesus also says he does nothing from himself. So the allusion is debatable, but the plain context still presents Jesus as distinct from God and not as God himself. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
And I agree with that statement insofar as he's not God, as in he's not the Father. He is distinct from God the Father. But we were just talking to a girl. I'm a monarchical Trinitarian. To which we hold that that Jesus is God by predication.
Interesting.
Right. So like
you said you were what? You were a
monarchical Trinitarian.
Okay.
Right. The Father is the true source, and then you have the Son and the Spirit who proceed from him.
By the way,
by predication and God.
I want to know, like, why are you telling me this? Because John 8 does not plainly teach you later Trinitarian distinction between like person and essence.
That's fine. I was just showing you a place, right? The initial conversation was, is there any way that Jesus claims to be God? Right? Because we were bouncing around. So I was like, well, what if he just says that he is? Then what?
Yeah, but you still have not shown that Jesus is Yahweh by identity. Only that you read him that way through like a theological framework.
Of the Old Testament, of Jesus himself quoting the Old Testament about himself. Can I just be 100% with you? Can I be 100% honest?
Yeah.
Do I have the freedom for that? It is, I think, intellectually dishonest in the context of John chapter 8 to say that Jesus is not quoting Isaiah 43:10 and Exodus 3:14 about himself as Yahweh. You have to ignore the context. You have to dance around it. That's the most plain reading of the text. And the people in the story understand it perfectly, which is why they try to unalive him, because they understand that he's claiming to be God.
But Coley, I'm not denying the Isaiah and Exodus echoes. I'm not. What would be intellectually dishonest is treating an allusion as if it settles metaphysics, and that would actually be dishonest. I'm denying you a leap from echo to ontological identity. That's what I'm doing. Especially with like the same chapter repeatedly distinguishes Jesus from the Father or Son. So that.
All right, at this point we're going in circles. Anyone else got a thought?
When did question for you? When did Abraham see Jesus?
When did Abraham see Jesus? In the narrative, Abraham saw his day prophetically, meaning like he foresaw the Messianic promise and rejoiced.
Well, right. in verse 56, Jesus says he saw him and was glad and rejoiced. He didn't say he saw his prophecy, or he says he saw him and rejoiced. So when did that happen?
No, the text says Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and
which is referring to his timing, which is referring to himself.
Yeah, but what does that mean in biblical language?
It's referring to himself when he says that.
No, but seeing a day can mean seeing it prophetically from afar.
In the context of John chapter 8, he's referring to himself. He says, Abraham rejoiced when he saw my day. So that's referring to himself.
Yeah, sure.
I'm asking you, when did that happen?
Sure, yeah, his day refers to him, yeah.
Okay, when did that happen?
When did that happen?
Yeah.
It's not, I don't know. I mean, it does not give a little face-to-face meaning there.
You'll see that in Genesis 18.
Genesis 18, wait, let me look it up. GodLogic, can you bring it up?
Sorry, what do you want me to look up?
Genesis 18. Because he's very specific. He says Abraham rejoiced and was glad.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Aramaic Bible of John 8, and pretty much all of Jesus' I am statements has him saying, I am the living God in the Aramaic. It's really interesting.
That's tough.
Shout out to Albie for that. That's wild.
That's tough.
Don't lie to us. You playing Tetris over there. You just playing Tetris.
By the way, GodLogic, the Aramaic is not decided because John was written in Greek. But, yeah.
Say that again.
I said the Aramaic does not decide this because John was written in Greek. I think you know.
I didn't say that the Aramaic was the original.
Yeah, I know you didn't say that.
So it's just interesting that you have the Aramaic version of the Bible of the New Testament in John 8, and it has Jesus all of his I am statements. It has him saying, "I am the living God." Every time. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
But okay. So even they understood it. They understood exactly what he was saying.
Right.
So Genesis 18?
Yeah, you start from the beginning. So this is already in the context, as Coley showed, that Jesus is identifying himself as Yahweh, and he puts Abraham in the mix. So God appears in verse 1. Verse 2, he recognizes and bows himself down, and he ends up serving them. So in this context in Genesis, you see that Abraham recognizes who God is. He's excited to see God, and he serves God. And this is in the context where Jesus is claiming to be the I am in John chapter 8. And then when they ask him, well, you're not even up to 50 years old, how did you see Abraham? He then claims to be God himself. So this is a very clear picture where Abraham sees God, rejoices, serves God, and Jesus is drawing back to that moment and in Exodus. So you see Jesus claiming to be the God of Abraham and the God of Moses within the span of a few verses.
Okay, so does it say that Abraham knew this was Jesus as a distinct divine person? Because a theophany is not automatically a Christophany.
I'm saying Jesus is identifying himself as Yahweh in John chapter 8. Yahweh appears to Abraham in Genesis 18. So he's claiming the identity of God in John chapter 8, right? You see in Exodus 3:14, God identifies himself to Moses. In Genesis 18, Yahweh is identified as appearing to Abraham.
Yeah, I'm saying that is your interpretation. That is not the plain statement of the text.
Well, with just within context, right? Just within context of 18 and 19, we're going to see definitively that there are two persons that bear the name Yahweh. So somebody has to be this Yahweh, right? So we read 18, we get to Genesis 19:24, where it says that Yahweh rained fire down on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahweh in heaven.
You said Genesis 19:24, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That does not definitely give you two divine persons. I don't know why you said that.
Mm-hmm. So Karma, you read it. Karma, you read it out loud for us. You read it and tell me how many.
And Yahweh rained on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Yahweh out of heaven.
So you have Yahweh in heaven and you have Yahweh on earth, correct?
Yeah, correct. But
do you see just one last question? Do you see a distinction between the Yahweh in heaven and the Yahweh on earth?
I see a distinction in the wording, but
okay. So if there's a distinction between Yahwehs, and we obviously believe there's one Yahweh, and you have a Yahweh in heaven, and you have a Yahweh in earth, and the Yahweh on earth is raining fire and brimstone from the Yahweh in heaven, that's clearly a distinction. And if there's a distinction, you would have two persons being identified as Yahweh, one on earth, one in heaven, right? And obviously that's how that would be applied to Christ. So this is how it all comes together.
No, but in Hebrew can repeat the divine name in a way that reflects agency or emphasis. And even if you read one Yahweh on earth and one in heaven, the text still it never says the one on earth is Jesus and the second co-equal person in the Trinity.
You at least agree, though. You at least agree that right here it's demonstrating that there are two persons who are identified as Yahweh, right?
No, I agree. There's a distinction in the wording, but I do not agree the verse demonstrates two divine persons.
Right, so who's the Yahweh on earth that's reigning on Sodom and Gomorrah? Who's that?
Sorry?
Who is the Yahweh on earth that's raining brimstone and fire?
It just says Yahweh is the one acting in the earthly scene.
Yeah, who is that though? Because you're saying that these aren't two persons, two distinct persons who are Yahweh. So I guess one of them has to be somebody else.
Yeah, it is Yahweh in the narrative.
What do you mean by that? Yahweh in the narrative?
I mean that the story attributes like the actions to Yahweh, but it does not explain that as like a second like divine person, like I showed you earlier. When I
I'm
was talking about
confused
you.
because it says so. So we already established that there's a Yahweh on earth, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
He came and visited Abraham.
Spoke with Abraham, then left Abraham to go judge Sodom and Gomorrah. And so we have a Yahweh on earth, and then it very explicitly tells us that there's a Yahweh in heaven. So there's a Yahweh on earth and a Yahweh in heaven, right?
Yeah, it explicitly distinguishes locations, but not ontology. That's the thing.
We agree. We agree.
Yeah.
There's a
That's right.
distinction in location, not ontology. They have the
Welcome
same
to the
nature.
Trinity.
So there's one person who's identified as Yahweh who came on earth, who came to earth, while there's another Yahweh, another person identified as Yahweh who's remained in heaven, and they are both interacting with each other. No ontological difference, but location difference, huh?
By the way, I did not grant that. You just strawmanned me. I said
That's what you said.
it. You brought it
No,
up.
I said the text distinguishes location, but it does not say anything about multiple persons sharing one divine nature. I didn't say that.
How can there be a distinction if there's only one? If there's only one person, you can't. How are you distinct from yourself if there's only one
Because
person?
do you know what a distinction is?
And that's the question to you. How if
No, a
if
distinction.
I'm by myself, how can I be distinct from myself in another location?
A distinction in description or location does not automatically mean a distinction of persons.
That's not answering my question, bro.
answer your
I'm in a
question.
room right now, right? I'm in a room right now, right? So how can I, Rich, be distinct from myself in another location? Is that possible?
Let me tell you.
I like that answer.
Brother, I'm sorry, by the way, I'm eating. Is there like any sound?
No, you're good. You
I heard a little smack. I heard a little.
Yeah.
a
Let me
little
tell
smack.
you.
Okay. So, Rich, your analogy is interesting, but the thing is that God is not a human body confined to one location like you. Your analogy only works if the text says two separate divine persons are present, but it never says that. That's the point. It can just mean Yahweh is acting on earth while bringing judgment from heaven. So,
I'm confused. So you are saying that only you're saying that it's one person, i.e. Yahweh, who's just acting on earth and in heaven? Is that correct?
yeah, yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to see what you think here.
You can bring a verse.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring a verse.
Okay.
So this is Amos 4:11. It says, I overthrew you as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and you are like a firebrand delivered from a blaze, yet you have not returned to me, declares Yahweh. So this is another verse agreeing that it was Yahweh who overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, right?
Can I read the wait? Look.
Yeah.
Oh, you read? I never even seen this. I never even connected this.
Yeah, my student Albie, he over here, showing me stuff that I showed him before.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. GodLogic, it was Yahweh. Yeah.
It was Yahweh, absolutely. And so the same thing. So we have Yahweh, who is the one who is overthrowing. So there is no, as you said, no ontological difference. It's Yahweh who is overthrowing Sodom and Gomorrah, right? But yet we see Yahweh, there's an interaction taking place. Yahweh from Yahweh. From is an interaction between one and one and another, right?
Not necessarily, by the way. Like from Mark's source, it's not a second person.
All right, brother. Well, I when you say from is not an interaction.
No, look it up. From Mark's source, not a second person. You can
Not
look
really
it up.
anything I could do there. All right. Well, I appreciate the conversations, Karma. I'm gonna go ahead and let somebody else.
Yeah, I cooked you guys.
You did. You baked us, man.
Well, technically, you could Coley because he talked with you the most. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Clip it.
You destroyed us, bro.